I'm joined now by Senator Bernie Sanders, one of some 30 lawmakers who are going to be boycotting Netanyahu's speech to Congress tomorrow. You're a Democrat, Senator? Well, you're an independent, I should say. Independent. You caucus with the Democrats, and a number of the Democrats are also boycotting. Tell me why you've decided not to attend.
Well, despite Prime Minister Netanyahu's assertions, obviously what's taking place is extremely partisan and, in fact, unprecedented. The Speaker of the House, John Boehner, invited Mr. Netanyahu and forgot to consult with the President of the United States, who leads our nation in terms of foreign policy. And I think that's wrong, and I think it's a very dangerous precedent. Second of all, Andrea, no great secret that Mr. Netanyahu is in a tough re-election race in Israel. That election, I think, is in 2 weeks. And I do not want to see the Congress of the United States being used as a prop or a photo opportunity in his re-election campaign. Not for him, not for any other leader around the world who is running for re-election.
Have you felt any pressure because of your decision not to attend?
No. I mean, in my state, I've gotten calls in support of my decision. I've gotten calls in opposition, but no real pressure.
At the same time, Netanyahu, as he explained it to AIPAC today, feels that there is a difference between security in the United States, which is a matter of national security for the most powerful nation of the world, and security in Israel against an Iranian threat, which he says is a matter of survival. For them, it is existential.
Well, I think what the President has made clear, and I think there is no difference of opinion here in the United States Congress, certainly not with me, is Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon, period. And that's what the President has said over and over again. But I'll tell you what else I think, Andrea. After over a decade of war in Iraq and a decade of war or more in Afghanistan, maybe we should try to do everything we can to prevent a war with Iran. Maybe we should negotiate along with China and Russia and the UK and France and Germany, try to negotiate an agreement with Iran that prevents them from getting a nuclear weapon without unleashing all of the forces of war. And that's what the President and these other countries are trying to do. And what the President has said very clearly, if these negotiations fail, there are alternatives. But let's give negotiations all of the opportunity and chance they can to succeed. And that's my view, and I think that's the President's view.
Well, that said, Secretary Kerry, some would say, is pushing very hard for a deal. And the latest details that have emerged from the talks are that Iran would have 10 years of a freeze and then would be able to break out, develop nuclear power, enrich again, and could arguably, after another 5 years, really break out. Is that enough of a freeze to guarantee the security of Israel?
The answer is that what is leaked out may be one thing, but I think the President has been very clear, and you're dealing with 5 other countries around the world, very clear that Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. And I'll tell you what gets me a little bit nervous and a little bit fearful is you got some people in Congress who do not perhaps fully understand the consequences of the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, where we are today, the disasters that those wars have caused, and are, maybe, not afraid or concerned about a war with Iran. I am. So I think we do everything that we can to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We work with leading countries around the world, and if that does not succeed, we look at our options. But you have got to go as far as you can to try to make that succeed.
I want you to play a little bit of Samantha Power. The UN ambassador also spoke to AIPAC today.
As a few of you may have heard, the Prime Minister of Israel is in town. Rumor has it that he may be giving a couple speeches. You may also have heard lately of tension in the relationship between the United States and Israel. We believe firmly that Israel's security and the U.S.-Israel partnership transcends politics, and it always will.
There's clearly, though, a lot of tension between this president and this prime minister. Is there any way to repair that now, or is it just the reality that the United States and Israel are going to have to deal with for the rest of this term?
I think that Israel and the United States have had a long-standing, very strong level of bipartisan support. I think that that will continue, and I think a year from now people may not quite remember this big hoopla. So I think the relationship is solid, but again, I think it is extremely unfortunate that Mr. Boehner, Speaker Boehner, has politicized this issue by inviting the Prime Minister here without consulting the President of the United States.
Does AIPAC have too much political clout in this foreign policy, what should be a foreign policy debate? And do you think that any of your colleagues have been pressured, domestic pressure from states perhaps where there is more pressure than there is in Vermont?
Well, you'll have to ask my colleagues. I don't know. Look, when we deal with Iran and when we deal with the Middle East, we are dealing with incredibly volatile and complicated issues. And as I said a moment ago, I think the war in Iraq was probably the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of America. I think we have got to be very, very cautious. I think we have got to work with our allies in the region and do everything that we can to bring peace into that very troubled area.
Bernie Sanders, the independent senator from Vermont, thank you very much, sir. Thanks for being with us.